did see a puff of smoke coming out from left side cylinders, so maybe there's an issue and he's just recognised it, shuts it off before any further damage might be done. So the car will have to be returned to the pits.
Ayrton as a person, one of the most intelligent men I've ever met. I think he used 50% of his ability to drive a racing car as quick as anybody else could, and he had so much spatial awareness about everything else was going on around with him, on the track, in the pits, at home. He was just tuned into so many things, and had an amazing talent to take on information and store it and then use it when he really needed to. I think when we saw Ayrton come to the team with such a strong desire to win, and he trained himself as well as expecting the team to perform, but he was the first one who really had a proper controlled diet. He had an exercise regime which wasn't to do with total strength, it was all to do with his reflexes and making anything that he could do where he thought that there was going to be an advantage over Keke Rosberg, who's put cigarettes out just before he got in the car to race. You know, those kind of things. He was looking for every way that he could improve his performance.
Peter Waugh was really a very canny operator, and all the teams were trying to get Ayrton because it was clear that he was something special, and certainly competition from McLaren and Williams, and back then the Lotus name was super strong. Ayrton had been living in Norfolk and with Van Diemen, and Peter, against a lot of competition, was able to get Ayrton's signature on that contract. I think Ayrton was the new dawn, if you like. So many important elements had been put together, and to bring Ayrton to be teammate with Elio, it was like the dream team. And they sparked off each other. And very quickly, particularly Ayrton's mechanics, appreciated that Ayrton was there for only one thing, and that was to win. And so at exactly the right time, Ayrton's ingredients arrived, and they were the vital ingredients.
To be close to him was obviously a privilege, and we knew that we had something special with Ayrton driving for us. And when you have that with a driver, then and the way he was with the team, endeared himself to us, and vice versa, because he was really engaged with everything that was going on. So he knew how to drive, but he knew what was going on with the cars and with the engineering as well, because he took such a big interest. And when a driver does that, then you realise that you've really got to knuckle down and get the job done. And if you give him a good product, then he's going to do well in it. Racing drivers, they're all quick, and their styles do change a little. Some are a bit more, some are smoother than others. Some use the steering, and they allow the car to move around a lot more because they're feeling every last little bit of grip. If you compared Jenson Button, for example, who was super smooth, he's still finding that grip. Ayrton found it in different ways. Insofar as if you watched him, the car was moving around quite a lot, and his tiny little bits of steering input, which is just measuring and feeling where the grip is. The cars were very different from the 80s to when Jensen was driving, but his confidence in just having hold of the thing, and they feel everything through the seat, through the pedals, through the hands, and through the vibration of the car. And he would detect engine problems because something didn't sound quite right, and be able to switch it all off before it blew up, so that someone had a chance of, when they dismantled it, of actually finding what was potentially wrong there. And he did identify stuff like that.
It turned out that Ayrton's strongest suit was his technical ability, his interpretation of the car, understanding of the car. We've got his Estoril lap, as recorded by Steve Hallam, his race engineer. And it's not just what's happening at every corner, but it's what's happening at the entrance, midpoint and exit of every corner. And Steve Hallam, one of the most capable race engineers there's been, was just amazed at his recollection and his input into helping the team to understand what was going on. And there wasn't a lot of data in those days, so really Ayrton was really a human data logger pretty much. And that certainly, with Jimmy and Colin realised that Jimmy had that ability. Again with Mario, Bob Dance tells a lovely story when Mario stuck it on pole at Watkins Glen in '68. Dad realised he had another driver like Jimmy, and Emerson as well, and Ayrton was another one in that vein. The 97T didn't offer any significant technical advantage. One or two interesting aero tweaks, the vertical deflectors behind the front wheels, but really it was a turbo car at a time when Team Lotus was outperforming the works team, so that was significant. We were being given the best engines Renault could give us. So it was in some ways something of a standard package, but being run by a really good team. Peter Warne knew how to run a team. Gerard was really strong on the technical side. The mechanics were excellent. So there was lots of things coming together to really make a combination that could win.
There was a huge amount of excitement for Estoril because we thought we were going to win in Brazil, and we really had a good car. And unfortunately, in those days, you needed to have a good car. You needed to have a lot of luck. Engines, gearboxes were pushed to their limits, and the measurement facility that they have now in Formula One, which they're pretty much 100% reliable. We never had that, and if you look back over the history, the world champions, they have got to be the best driver to do it, but they've got to have a good car, and they've got to have a car which is reliable. And we had a great car, we had great engines, albeit we had some difficulties with them. With the great engines comes more power, which put more strain through our gearboxes, which was something else that we had to catch up with. So it's an ever-increasing development. And if you did 1985 again and we had as much good luck as we had bad luck, we would have won. That would have been his first title.
Estoril was just a great way to begin the European season, and for Team Lotus to get back to winning a Grand Prix 3 years after Colin died. It was a Team Lotus front row, I think. Ayrton and Elio were first and second for much of the race. Ayrton lapped everybody bar one. An incredible performance. It didn't come out the blue, it was a good performance in Brazil. But for Team Lotus to realise that kind of dominance in just the second Grand Prix, and for the Chapman family, it was just amazing to win again with Hazel at the helm. And for all the team that had stayed loyal at Ketteringham Hall, and nearly everybody had, because they really wanted Lotus to win again. For it to happen just 3 years, as I say, since Colin died was a fantastic thing. And at that time we were thinking, wow, here comes the rest of the season. We're looking strong here. We've got two amazing drivers, a great car, a great team. So just a dream result. We love that the car's still running. We've had it in the collection since 1985. I started Classic Team Lotus 30 years ago. The car wasn't running at that time. We exchanged a car with Renault to get the engine, and Chris Dinnage, the team manager, oversaw the restoration of the car. We've been looking after it ever since. It's 40 years old and we're still running it, and it's not that straightforward. All the crew at Classic Team Lotus have spent many more hours than they should looking after her. But then to have the opportunity to bring it to the members, to share it with the fans at Goodwood, and in particular to see Bruno Senna driving the car, it's going to be so special. And 363 days of the year, the car sits quietly in the workshops at Hethel, and then just once or twice we'll bring her out and run her. And the engine noise is so distinctive, and the history is so special, and it's the black and gold, and it's Ayrton, and to do it at Goodwood is going to be fantastic.
It'll be great seeing Bruno drive it. He was going to drive at Silverstone last year, but because of the weather, he couldn't, and he was only there for one day, which allowed me to drive it. So to get him in the car will be great. I spoke to him last week. He's really excited about coming to do it, and so it'll be great here. It will be emotional in Portugal.
I'm Bruno Senna, nephew of Ayrton Senna, and I'm driving this amazing car here at Goodwood today. So this marks the 40th anniversary of Ayrton's first win in Formula One with this very car here, and there's a few amazing celebrations to pay tribute to this amazing achievement. It was the first of 41 victories for Ayrton, and he paved the way to his great career. I get the chance of driving lots of Ayrton's cars, and each car has a special significance, but some cars, first victory, first title, even first pole position, they give you this special feeling that sort of like almost simulate a bit of what he was feeling when he got those accolades in his career. And his career being so successful, those must have been extremely special moments. For me, it's so special to come to Goodwood. Every year I come here for the Festival of Speed, and every few years I come to members meeting. Haven't done the revival yet, but I'll get in the schedule eventually. But the track is amazing. Proper old school track. You get to drive some of these cars that give you the proper feel of speed and thrill. So it's I come back every time I can. Normally in the UK you get the rain, so the conditions will be quite well simulated. This time we have beautiful weather, so a bit easier for me driving, but it's just special to be able to give not only myself but everybody else the opportunity to see these special machines out there and to experience them a little bit.
So you're obviously driving this to commemorate the 40th anniversary of his first victory. You were 18 months old-ish. Do you know where you were when you won his first race? I think
I must have been home. I probably don't remember it, obviously watching, but most of the races I remember watching were when he was in McLaren already, because I was a bit older then. But of course, I've watched all of his races in F1 archives and so on. and this was a special one. And the more you sort of do racing, the more you understand how special some of his achievements were, and particularly this one where he was the class of the field by a large margin. And car and driver and team, they came together that weekend, and it was an amazing victory.
Did you ever talk to him about his time at Lotus?
Yeah, I mean, we had. Of course, I was little when he was alive, but all the racing teachings that he gave me came from all his experience, and I think each sort of year that he did in F1, he was learning so much about his rivals, the cars, and everything, and he was always talking about how aggressive these turbo engine cars were. I think he probably missed them a little bit when they went to the natural aspirated engines, but I think it was a bit easier to drive as well. So I think in some ways it was a bit relieving. Turbo cars from this era, they had huge amount of turbo lag. I don't think people appreciate how much power you gain on a switch. So you go on the throttle, you have maybe 200, 300 horsepower, and suddenly you have 700 horsepower. So you have to predict this moment where the power is coming in, and if you're on the limit of the grip, it's quite tricky. So it required a bit of a special talent, and you see, especially in circuits like Monaco, where the drivers were running below the boost most of the time, he was running on the boost most of the time. So it took him so much confidence and talent to manage these beasts like this. And for us doing the demo, of course, we want to be always on the safe side, but feeling the boost and the acceleration is always a real thrill. Last year was a celebration of his life, 30th anniversary since he passed away, and there were so many tributes to him. And when you think that 30 years seems like a long time ago, 40 years is, extremely long. And to have, not only McLaren, which is sort of like the main connection of Ayrton and F1, but Lotus and everybody sort of really pushing this this memory forward and keeping, young people who never saw Ayrton, getting them to know him. We're very, very happy that this is being done. And when they called me to get to drive the car, I never said a yes as fast as I did like this.
And obviously this is just chapter one of this whole tour. You're taking the car back to Estoril. I guess Goodwood's cool, but having this car back in Estoril, that's an extra level of special, is it?
I never raced in Estoril. I've driven the track a couple of times, but never raced there. And going back there in such a important date, such an important car, I just hope it's not raining. But in any case, you're giving me back so many feelings. Lots of people always ask me if I remembered Ayrton when I won a race, when I was in a podium on a racetrack. And the tracks are so sort of generic in some ways that you're just in the moment. But when I won in Monaco in Formula 2, that podium really brought back all these memories, all these rememberings that I had from a kid. And this, looking at all the photos we have from the archives and all the Lotus team cheering on the pit wall, I think that will also be quite an emotional moment. So I'm looking very forward to it.
In 1985 at the very race in Brands Hatch. But Ayrton Senna in qualifying, I mean, I walked past the Lotus team after qualifying, spoke to Peter Ward, the team manager, said, "Hey, your boy did a good job today." And they turned around and said, "Yes, we know." And he shattered the qualifying lap time at Brands Hatch. I don't think it's ever been matched since.
No, he really did have a remarkable time that year, stunning pole positions regularly. And of course, in terms of qualifying, Portugal, he put it on pole. What he did in the wet was just astonishing. The way he made his break right from the start. And we saw, I wonder if there's a little bit of an issue there, because Bruno's having a bit of a look down. I wonder if there's a little bit of an issue with the car. Hopefully he can bring it back.
I think he's actually coasting here, Ben. I think he's out of gear and the engine's shut down, so I think he's just coasting. We did see a puff of smoke coming out from the left side cylinders, so maybe there's an issue and he's just recognised it, shuts it off before any further damage might be done. So the car will have to be returned to the pits. Unfortunately, he's about as far away from the pits as you can get, and he's looking down at the instrumentation to see if he can maybe give some information when the rescue vehicle comes to him as to what the problem might be. But it's unfortunate the car's just pulling over to the side of the circuit.
Yes, no, that is a little bit of a shame, but it's still lovely to see the car out today. It has that very unique...
Well, we had quite an emotional weekend at Goodwood because it was great having the car there. It was even better having Bruno there driving and seeing the helmet colours all sitting in the car and on the big screen going around the track. So it was a really special moment. And Saturday it just sounded so good and so cool. It just takes you back to the mid-80s when those turbo cars sounded so cool. And unfortunately, we had a problem with the oil pump drive, which put her out of action halfway through the Sunday demo. So it was a real high and then a real low.
It's always such a pleasure to drive there. The racetrack is like old school, and you feel the speed there. The average speed is already pretty high, and these cars, they're not like planted, they move around a little bit. I'm not anywhere near the limit of the car, but still you get like the sensation of speed and the thrill, and the turbo boost coming in when you're sort of coming out of the corners. I think we're top of fifth gear there, so probably like in the high 200 kilometers per hour. So yeah, I mean, the problem of doing these demos that you want to do more laps. Normally you have like short runs and you just want to keep going. And then, you know, you see the checker flag and it's like, you think they're going to stop me if I continue? But yeah, the laps that I got at Goodwood were so amazing. And on the in-lap, when you slow down and you can really sort of interact with the people on the grandstands, you get to see like what it means to everybody, so it was amazing. On the first run that we did on the Saturday, the engine was running cold, so we had not a lot of boost on the turbos, which is fine, you know, I'm not trying to do any lap times there. So for the second day, we worked together to sort of put more, less cooling on the engine, and the temperatures were looking good. And on the out lap, when I came out of the assembly area and then came around the track, I saw in the mirror there's a bit of like white smoke. So I'm like, maybe that's a bit of oil. So I stopped in the pits immediately, and then they said, no, it's just the turbo that's burning a bit of oil. And the temperature rose on the engine, and then the car was actually running quite nicely as I came out of the pits again. So as I came around on the start finish straight, I came around turn 1, and this red light on the dash turned on, and took me, a second, because I was in the middle of the first corner. I looked down and I saw the oil pressure 0, and when I saw that, I immediately stepped on the clutch and the engine stopped. So I'm like, I really hope that within these 2 seconds, 3 seconds that it took me from see the oil pressure going to 0 to pressing the clutch, so the engine rotated for a few seconds, that we could save whatever happened with the engine, because when you have no oil pressure, it's bad news. But apparently it was not enough. It's only a couple seconds, but yeah, the engine struggled. And then when we stopped the car, when the car was brought back to the garage, a 10-euro part failed on the engine. It connects the oil pump to the belts of the engine. This part came off, and that stopped the oil flow from the engine. I think the damage inside is not enormous. There's no block damage or anything that's major, so the engine can be rebuilt without any major difficulty. But we wanted the car to continue running. Of course, every time you do these demos, you feel like you want to take so much care of the car, but some things are out of your control. So as much as you don't miss a gear, don't override the engine, don't push the car too hard. If something mechanical goes, there's nothing you can do about it.
Well, so we arrived in Estoril last night, so day before the big event, and we had some old team members turn up, which was that was really cool to see guys who were here that day, friends that have stayed all those years. So we had a great night out, making lots of memories last night, and came here this morning, and it was kind of quiet and damp and a little bit of rain in the air, so that was kind of a little chilling, but it felt kind of a little bit like an anticlimax almost, because we knew we weren't going to be able to start the engine. And then we opened the garage door, we pushed the car out, and the filming started, and we took the car and put it on the grid. We took it around the track to put it in various places for the photos, to reproduce photos from 40 years ago. And then it all started to sort of come flooding back. And halfway through the shoot, it poured with rain like it did on the afternoon 40 years ago. The heavens opened, there were rivers running across the track. So it was surreal. It was somebody upstairs looking down saying, let's make that car and that crew all wet again, just like it was 40 years ago. Amazing.
And what are your memories of the day 40 years ago?
40 years ago, we knew we had a good chance because Ayrton was so good in the rain. And in the morning it was a normal day. And then slowly but surely the rain came in. We had a problem with the engine, and the Renault guys didn't want to change Ayrton didn't want to change the engine. But the Renault guys thought there was something wrong with one of the valves, and they were insistent that we changed it. So there was a standoff between the two, but fortunately we did change the engine, and then the heavens opened, and then the masterclass started, never to be repeated. Don't think anybody's ever driven quite such an outstanding drive in conditions like that, with conventional throttle brakes and clutch pedal and a gear stick and no traction control and no ABS. It's a 900 horsepower turbo engine, and it was a masterclass.
Could you start off by introducing yourself?
Yes, I'm Keith Sutton, Formula One photographer for over 40 years, and I photographed 700 Grand Prix. I was also Ayrton Senna's photographer and PR manager in the 80s. My memory from 1985, is obviously quite special because it was his first Grand Prix win. I'd worked with him for those 3 years from 81 to 84. And we both had dreams to get to Formula One. And, him as a driver and myself as a, photographer. We were just two young boys when we met. But, that was his dream, to win. And that day in the, torrential rain, he won, and he was absolutely, jubilant when he crossed the line. And that day, because of the rain, and I knew I needed to capture, that moment when he's crossing the line, and I was soaked, my cameras were wet, I needed to dry out. So I went into the back of the grandstand here, opposite the pits, and dried myself off. And then as he crossed the line, I just shot him, with his hand up in the air. That was a special day, one I'll never forget. 4 years previously, that was his dream. And, I'd been there, for most of it, and for him to, succeed in the way he did and to win it in Portugal was incredible. Yeah.
Being here again today, we took the car out this morning. We went to different points along the track,
yes,
and we recreated some of those photos. What was going through your mind this morning when those moments were happening? Was it like kind of stepping back in time because of the conditions, or was it just, what was it to you? It was
surreal, because to be there 40 years, to be here 40 years later, you would have never dreamt of that. And to see his car actually on the track at the corners where I was photographing him, and the fact, all of a sudden we had a torrential downpour. It was just, it was so surreal. You just couldn't believe that was happening. Especially after 40 years ago. It was the same conditions.
Brought back a lot of memories.
It did, yeah. But this time, of course, I wasn't in that same pressure of getting the photos, and making sure my cameras were, were dry and my lens, was clean. But I think looking back, if you think of his first ever car race that he won, at Brands Hatch, that was in torrential rain as well. And then of course you had Monaco in torrential rain. And then of course here, when he won his first Grand Prix in 1985, amazing. He really was the rain master.
Yeah, I'm really glad we came. My initial reaction was, well, we can't go to Estoril, but Chris Dinnage, the team manager, is made of much sterner stuff, and so of course we're going to go. And I'm really glad we did. There's been great crowds just to come to see the car, and there have been times when it's been really. It's occurred to me, if we ran the car today, I think everyone would just be in tears because it would be so fantastic. And I'm absolutely determined to come back later this year with the car when it's fixed to do that. I'm just so proud of them, what they achieved, and to remember them and their teammates, because it was a fantastic effort. Formula One, like today, it's the most extraordinary challenge, and it sucks people in, takes over their whole lives pretty much. And it was the same back in '85. No one had worked harder than those Team Lotus mechanics. They did an engine change after the morning warm-up, and then stuck it on the grid, and Ayrton drove it for 2 hours and won the race without a pit stop. And it's just to see them back here together again, and there's no ego or there's no point scoring. It's just all positive, happy memories. It's great.
Coming back to Estoril was something that Clive and I had wanted to do for some time. And we said, even if we drive the van and trailer ourselves, we're going to bring it here, just so it's here. We contacted the circuit, which in the early part of the contact was quite slow going. And then something clicked, and I think they realised the significance of what they could have, and they opened it up for the public on yesterday morning, 3 hours, free of charge. And there were 12,000 people here. I mean, it was just staggering. The support and the overwhelming passion that people have for Ayrton is 40 years on. It's incredible. It really is an incredible thing to happen.
It's a level of passion which we haven't had any experience like this with any other driver or occasion. There's been emotional moments remembering drivers we've lost, of course, but there's something about this. There's a lot of young people. Most people are under 50 years old, and you kind of think, well, how come, why are they here? They can't remember the day. But clearly in Portugal and Brazil, I haven't been out to Brazil, so I guess even more so out in Brazil. But Portugal's so close to Brazil, and really impressed by people's genuine love and affection for Ayrton, which is great considering all the things that the IAS is still doing in his memory. It's so good to see that kind of passion and enthusiasm.
And then moving the conversation to today and seeing the car here, and we've had it out on track obviously at certain points, it's amazing to us and obviously also the fans that are here. What are your emotions here today as well?
It's amazing emotions. We get to Estoril, they deliver even the rain for us, so replicated the anniversary even better. And the car is looking beautiful. The people here are amazing. They're so keen on seeing the car and experiencing this history. And for me, it's like only the third time I come to this racetrack, and it's a proper old school racetrack like Goodwood. It's sort of like in some ways stayed still in time. So you get to see, if you go around the track, you can see a few of the corners are exactly the same as they were 40 years ago. So you get to feel a little bit like you were there. But I think even better would have been if the engine was running and we could, put the noise to the people and to the track and see how this car would put the spray back up in the air and make it roar. But hopefully we can get another chance of this.
I mean, going on to that, saying putting the car out there, what would you think the feeling would be like driving a car like this in the wet? Like, what kind of traction would you expect from it?
Well, I have to say I probably would have been a lot more careful than Ayrton was going around the track in the wet here. But, it would have been even more of a demonstration. I never drove any of these cars in the wet before. And I think you sort of like, every time you drive them, you get the feeling of what it felt like a little bit in a way. Of course, we're not in a race situation, there's no pressure, but you get a feel of the car. The cars, they give you feelings when you drive. And even if you're not on the limit. So I think driving this car, this track in the wet would have probably brought me many feelings. A bit like Monaco last year when I drove the McLaren in Monaco. This is like there's some places and some cars that when you put them together on these situations, it gives you like, oh, I was there feelings, And this car was on the track as well last year in Monaco together. So we could sort of like not race, but be together on the track. So I think that was the most connected I've ever felt when I've done a demo run with one of Ayrton's cars.
How much does it mean to you to see the fans out here obviously still passionate about the car even to this day on the anniversary?
I think the most amazing part of today's people appearance here is that maybe 80% of them are young people. They're really, really young people that never saw Ayrton live or in any way. So the fact that Ayrton still means so much to these people that never got the experience of like seeing him shows that Ayrton's human connection with people is stronger than just a sportsman thing. It's a real personal, deep connection. So for me, it's a feeling of honor because it shows that Ayrton was not only a great sportsman but a great person. And his way of life, his beliefs still carry on through so many years. 30 years is a lifetime, and the new generation, I think there's a lot we all can learn from Ayrton and the way he was, but yeah, the new generation can have a bit of his personality in their lives.